swelling out in the toes. We want to really work quickly to get the blood up into the muscle to be able to pump it upward, or in the lymphatics, where then the lymphatic pump is activated by the muscle movement. Okay, so that's one of the big keys. If we've had the surgery, we want to be able to quickly pump and restore the pumping mechanism of that calf muscle in the back to activate that lymphatic pump outward again. Okay. If we've had the elbow, we want to quickly activate those large muscles. Even if the arm is, again, held in place, we want to activate the forearm muscles by just simply squeezing a small ball. It doesn't have to be large muscle movements. Even if we've had a wrist injury, if it's immobilized, we still want to move those fingers to pump then and elevate while we're pumping, so that we can actually move the lymphatic tissues, or lymphatic fluid around and bathe that muscle area to take that toxicity out. Okay. The longer that this bradykinin stays present, the more noxious stimulation there is, and as human beings we want to avoid pain. That's why it's there. Okay. When God created these amazing bodies, He knew there would be times when we'd be mountain biking out in Moab and there weren't always helicopters available to come in and rescue us. Okay, so He created this ability for the leg to actually cast itself. If I've sprained my ankle, this automatically creates its own ankle cast that we can take home, right? And that little casting presentation is part of the histamine, bradykinin, all this bleeding response to help to immobilize and keep that body from bleeding out, or from the unintelligent individual walking on a broken leg, right? Which, of course, nowadays we dummy that down by taking enough morphine that we can just get right back and go for it again. So that's what we see with a lot of our athletes. They numb themselves completely up. They go out and they beat the crud out of their bodies, come back and have to take more painkillers, and then they go through that terrible cycle the rest of their lives. So we want to encourage and maximize healing. Now, one thing we have not really talked about that I think is really essential to healing is the healing of lasers and laser light. Okay, laser light. What's been actually measured? I'll erase this model. When we actually look at two dividing cells in the body, two healthy dividing cells, when they divide, they actually release a little burst of energy. And that burst of energy is actually a frequency of light that has been measured at 635 nanometers. Now the significance of that is that 630, and basically it's 630 to I believe 680, is the red spectrum. And so that little laser pointer that everybody used to tease the cat with, or use up on the pointer board, and you had the professor, remember when PowerPoints came out and they were really popular, and the one professor would always try to point with the laser pointer, and the pointer was going all over like this, and he'd try to hold it steady. It's like, golly, just put the pointer down, I can read just fine, you only have 8 words up there. But that little laser pointer actually has a similar frequency and can stimulate then the cell resonant frequency of an optimally dividing healthy cell. Okay, let me say that a different way. In order to have cell replication, there's a process called mitosis. And when those mitotic cells, or when that cell is going through this mitotic division, once those cell membranes divide, there's a burst of energy that's released. And they've actually measured that release of energy to be the same frequency as red light, a laser light. What we've extrapolated from that is, if we then introduce that energy back to an area that's been traumatized, it can help those cells that are dividing to divide in a healthy manner, or offer them or encourage them to optimally divide in a healthy way. Okay? So this scar then, instead of just becoming a big keloid, you ever seen somebody who has a keloid scar? Okay, it's that raised scar. It's that scar that you'll see a lot of times where athletes, they'll go and they'll tattoo, or not tattoo, they'll actually brand themselves. You'll see this raised, I don't know what they put on there, maybe a anchor, I don't know. But you'll see how it's raised in that big thick scar. Okay? That keloid formation is not an optimally dividing cell healthily, because the charred flesh is trying to heal, and that's getting a very mottled, remodeling appearance. But this dividing cell, if we can offer it that energy as it's healing, it can actually aid and increase that resonant structure of healing. Now here's another fascinating thing that I'm just amazed by, because a lot of the primary research or principal foundation research done with lasers is in dentistry. And I've been working with dentists for 7 years now, and I think that they have so many opportunities to help people to be well, and you know that if you've been to our class before. Anyway, what we find is within the cell, within the nucleus, are these double helical strands called genes. And the gene itself, if we were actually to draw this on a little bit larger scale, what we'll see is that in essence there are ladder rungs between this that are made of very specific sequences. What they've found is that there's, again we'll use this word perpendicular, this symbol perpendicular, there's an energy that keeps this cell nucleus open and from collapsing on itself, and that energy that's measured there perpendicular to that cell is measured at a very specific frequency. Okay? And that frequency is the blue light spectrum, or actually in the purple. It's just right there at the verge of the purple and the blue. Okay? And that, I think, is pretty fascinating. What they did is they took this 635 nanometers, divided it by what's called the golden number, which they've seen mathematically in all of nature is what creates shape and form. Okay? It's what gives symmetry. In our bodies, in our faces, in our creation, there's this golden number that gives this rule of mathematics that creates symmetry, that makes something attractive to us. It makes trees grow the way they do. It makes arches in architecture appealing. And the Romans actually found this number mathematically and called it the golden number. Well, this researcher actually took 635 and divided it by the golden number and came up with this light. And this light actually correlated with the energy that's being emitted or actually absorbed or holding that genome open. Which then means that we have the ability to optimize the gene expression or the optimization of a healthy cell at its very gene can be stimulated by using this laser frequency. I think that's fascinating. So